These are defenders of human rights, courageous and effective activists for the rights of others, often facing great risks and harassment themselves in places beyond the global spotlight where basic human rights are ignored.
Haiti is the land of impunity. You can do whatever you wish. You'll never be punished.
I don't think that we can say that we have full democracy in Afghanistan, because the people in Afghanistan does not have full security, first of all, which is another basic human right.
The situation of human rights is serious right now, and the situation of democracy as well.
Human rights defenders in my country are being portrayed as the enemy of the people, as those who betray national interests and actually work for foreign intelligence.
From around the world each year, democracy activists come to the Carter Center in Atlanta for the annual Human Rights Defenders Forum, co-sponsored by Human Rights First. Most are veteran champions of democracy. Many have been imprisoned for their work. Their purpose here, to recommend how the United States, the United Nations, and other governments can support their local human rights efforts.
A conference like this brings in many human rights defenders who themselves were at one time or another victims of human rights abuses by the ruling regimes in their respective countries. Comparing notes, learning from each other, and giving each other moral support is in itself very important.
It can be one way of amplifying our voices. Particularly in a place like Haiti, very few people are interested in what goes on in Haiti. So it's important, a conference like this.
Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter chairs these events with the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights.
For 20 years now, the Carter Center has considered the promotion of freedom and democracy to be an integral part of our thrust or commitment to human rights.
A major theme of the defenders is that free and fair elections are the launching pad for democracy in traumatized societies, but that support from the international community is still needed after elections, when the hard work of building democratic institutions and a culture of respect for human rights really begins.
You couldn't really go for democracy without the beginning point, and I would, even if I was to prioritize, look more at entrenching human rights. Elections on their own do not constitute democracy or do not constitute development. Elections and respect for human rights and the rule of law and the institutions of democracy are all integrated.
We have had, 3 elections. We have had countless intervention by the UN, I think 5 or 6 by the UN. Every time the international community comes in, they say, okay, reform of the judiciary, we are bringing support. It lasts the time for Haiti to be in the headlines. When we are no longer in the headlines, then the Haiti fatigue sets in, and then no one else is interested.
Another theme, the recognition that social and economic rights are just as important as political rights for a strong, healthy democracy.
The basic rights to food, to shelter, the basic rights of life. And unless you have lost it or are in fear of losing it, you won't appreciate what it is.
And I think unless we can make the connection between democracy and human rights as it relates to the poorest sections of our communities, then we're not making any significant contribution to promoting human rights of the ordinary person.
Another important appeal coming from this conference is addressed, in fact, to the United States and to other established democracies to return to the principles of human rights in the conduct of the war on terror by applying the Geneva Conventions, for example, to the treatment of detainees or the prevention of torture. Departure from these principles makes it, in fact, very difficult for human rights defenders in their own work as their own governments point to the U.S. and, say, the British as setting a kind of standard.
At a time when many nations still suffer from repression, terrorism, and poverty, the Carter Center supports grassroots movements that represent the best hope for democracy and human rights.